I went whoosh and out of my body, and my whole being expanded. My spirit expanded into the universe. And it wasn't me and the universe. It was just this oneness. Everything was one. And what I can describe to you is that the feeling base of this was bliss. I understood what bliss is because it is blissful there. There are no concerns. There's no bills. There's no timelines to be rushing to. It's just everything blissful. And so I was loving this and I was being transported. It was a bit like a movie. It looked a little like the scope behind you, your backdrop. It was cosmic. There were stars and it was a light twinkling, and it just felt like a Hollywood movie to me. It was twinkly and gorgeous and not at all scary. I was very comfortable. And I experienced, for me, it felt like I was going through what it feels like when anyone else dies. You go through the veil, through the mechanism, or whatever, that feels a heavy word for it, but beautiful veil that you go through when you change dimensions and move through dimensions. And I felt light, I felt omnipotent, I felt omnipowerful, I could do anything. And I already had pretty good belief system around being able to do anything, but I really could do anything. I was made aware of the power of intentions.
My guest today is Susie Pearl, who owned a PR firm working with MTV and artists like Michael Jackson. And after that, she got connected with a hypnotist and she became a master hypnotist over the 12 years before she wound up getting sick and receiving a diagnosis that she had 3 weeks to live. Susie had an incredible near-death experience, and when she came back, her cancer was miraculously healed. But that is just the tip of the iceberg of why you want to listen to this today, because Susie has garnered so much wisdom and insights. I think that you are going to be blown away by this conversation. So Susie, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me from across the world, which I love that the technology allows us to do this. Thank you for being here today.
It's an absolute pleasure. I'm really looking forward to sharing some juicy stories.
Oh, it's going to be so good. I'm actually very curious. I always ask this question for somebody who's had a near-death experience out of childhood, and that is, what was your life like before? But I'd also like to add a little bit of a caveat, because I'd really like you to tell us a little bit about how you were working with the music people and the PR firm, because it does fit into your story, and also how you came to be a part of this hypnosis community as a master hypnotist.
Mm. Yeah, well, I had this colorful, amazing showbiz life. I was on aeroplanes with Michael Jackson and hanging out at Madonna's house for breakfast and things. It was incredible. I was at MTV. I started off at MTV and Sony Music, and I was just really good with artists. And at MTV, my job when I arrived was to go to New York, to Radio City, and really follow how they do the Video Music Awards, because in Europe, we were about to launch the MTV Europe Music Awards, and we really didn't know what to do. So I went out to New York, and I ended up, I had a reputation for being really great with artists. We had a lot of artists in the studio all the time. We had live music TV, and I was hanging out with a lot of people, and people liked me and asked me to look after them and be with them and stuff. And I don't know, I just had a frequency that allowed me to hang out with these people. And from that stage, I went to America and I worked with the very most famous people musically, and had a ball. And I set up this company in the UK, and it flew right from the start. It just flew. And I found myself looking after the MTV Awards, very gorgeous artists, incredible stories, like hanging out with Michael Jackson. How much fun was that? At the time, I just thought he's an artist. I know he's a great artist. And I remember sitting in Radio City Hall, week one at MTV, and seeing Michael doing his rehearsals and just singing and dancing on the stage. And all the crew who were scattered all over the place all came together just to sit and watch this extraordinary extravaganza. And this feeling of having a genius and a presence of a genius in a room is quite something, and it's something I really got used to because I was lucky enough to have that a lot. So I had this wonderful life. It meant that I was working, flying around, always my phone was ringing. I was full on for years, and really there was little downtime. And I found it very difficult to hang out with people who weren't in the business, because you'd say, hey, what have you been up to? And I couldn't share what I'd been doing because it created such a distance. Where do you go from that? I've just come back from Hollywood and I went to so and so's house. It was just made that my friends kind of go, oh gosh, I don't know who she is anymore. So it was quite a lonely place to be that successful in showbiz. It was wonderful. I went to all the Hollywood parties. It was just fun. So that was a high octane life. And I thought to myself, I can't keep this up, as wonderful and as fun as it is. I actually need to have some normality. I sold my PR agency to a TV production company who does a lot of music, television. And I moved to Ibiza with my son, one bag each, and no real plan. We just decided we were going to change our lives a bit and have a nice time. And I'd fallen in love with the island of Ibiza. It's beautiful. It's very mystical. A lot of artists, writers, mystics, all sorts of people hang out there. Plant medicine people, shamans coming from the Amazon, and it's a colorful place, and it suited me. So I ended up sitting there, and I lay down on the beach and thought, oh God, at last I can rest. And my mobile phone rang, and it was Paul McKenna, who's a very famous hypnotist in the UK and a very prolific writer, one of our most successful nonfiction writers. He called up, and he's a big, big friend of mine. And he said, darling, I need to find out what you're up to. And I said, I've just left my corporate life. Yay. And I'm on the beach and I'm going to stay here. And I don't know what's happening next. He said, well, I'd love you to come and run my business, which is personal transformation, teaching NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, with the creator of this, Richard Bandler, and myself. And we teach hypnosis and how to change mind states, how to run your brain and your mind for change and powerful healing and so on. So I said, okay, but I'm not going back to run companies again. I've just spent years trying to get out of that. And he went, I see. He says, I was inviting you to come and run my company. And I said, well, no, I can't. I'm staying here. And he said, oh, okay, I'm going to put it another way to you. I'm a friend and I need some help. He got me. And before I knew it, I was on a plane back to the UK. He picked me up in his fancy car, went to Nobu for lunch, and he was hypnotizing me. And I stayed with him for 8 years. I promised I would stay for 3 weeks and get him a new managing director. And there I was learning hypnosis. And as it turns out, hypnosis is such a powerful modality and allowed me to watch people bust their belief systems constantly. We'd be in seminars, people would come and the call would go out, who in the room cannot has got no musical ability, and hands would go up. Who cannot sing? Hands would go up. Who cannot paint? Loads of people. I can't paint. I'm not an artist. And then I watched with my very eyes, in half an hour of hypnosis, people dancing like Fred Astaire, who couldn't dance, painting like Picasso, people who couldn't paint, and singing like some rock star. And suddenly I realized that all of these narratives and stories that we tell ourselves can be changed with just simple reorganizing the mind and our belief systems. So I decided this was the most interesting thing that I'd come across, and that I was going to dedicate part of my life to learning about it. And I did. I was in there for years, and it was part of saving my life. There were a number of things that saved my life, and hypnosis continues to be a very big part of my life. When I was ill, I was being hypnotized every day, and the nurses and doctors would come in and I go, shh, no, I'm being hypnotized. And they were like, oh God, she's nuts. And you know, all of this, because I was edgy. It's a little more mainstream now, but only just a little bit more mainstream. But these kind of things, I think our mind is the most incredible aspect of being a human being and being on this planet. So to be able to be a ninja at running our mind, our emotions, how we think, how we feel, understanding the power of language and the power in all the words that we use and put out to the universe. This was the essence of what I was learning for years, and to become a really masterful over it was one of the greatest things I've ever learned. So I'm very grateful for that.
Wow. That was a super cool explanation of all of those things. All right, I want to fast forward, not quite yet to your near-death experience, but I know that you were visited by an angel. I don't even know how this happened to you. And you were shown 3 things that were going to happen to you before they happened.
Yes. So I didn't tell this story to anyone for quite a while because I didn't want to be thought of as an oddball or nuts. The advantage I've had in all of this is that I had a very prestigious career and did great things.
So you had credibility.
I couldn't be pigeonholed as, oh, she's just some hippie nuts person. No, actually, I was floating with the best of them and creating extraordinary things all my life. So I'd built a credibility that was hard to shoot down. That was in my favor. And as I kind of went along, I realized I had to be careful. And is with my job in PR, my whole job was about what messages are going out, how you communicate, what you say, when you say it, all of these things. So I was pretty much an expert in this area. And when I started telling my angel story that I'll tell you in a moment, I noticed that many people are kind of going, oh God, she has really lost it now. And she's just, she's just done in a different place. And I kind of saw people kind of close down a bit. So I was careful with telling the story. Now I've realized I'm just telling my story. I don't really mind how it lands. It's not my responsibility that. And it will land in a way that works for people in the way that they need it, the way they can receive it. So that's not my job to worry about editing. So I was in the hospital and I'd been diagnosed with this humongous brain tumor that was so large in the middle of my brain that the prognosis was about 3 weeks. Basically, get your lawyer in, get a will written, get your family here, make plans for how it's all going to be set up when you're gone. And my intuition was so loud, and I knew that it was not my time to go, and that I didn't want to go, and that I knew that I was going to reorganize things mentally, let's say, consciously, or in my subconscious even. I was going to reorganize things and stay. I'm a mum. I was a single mum, and I had a young boy to look after, and I was the sole earner, and I wanted to stay. So this was my position. I went into my hospital room, sat on the edge of my bed, and I began to meditate. And I had this overwhelming feeling that I was going to die, which didn't stack up with my concept that I'd set up in my head that I'm going to stay. So I sat down on the bed. I'm a regular meditator, TM. I'd done it for 15 years, love it. And I felt my spirit inside being taken up as if I had a vacuum hoover here, sucking it up. And I felt it trying to get out my body through the crown of my head. And then whoosh, up it went. And the spirit of me left, leaving my body behind. And that in that moment, I just knew everything was going to change, and I was going through this extraordinary thing. Now, relating to the angels, when I was going into the scanner for the first scan, I went in and I felt this visitation of golden orb that surrounded me completely. And this felt like a flock of angels, is the best way I can describe it. It was a golden energy of absolute love that came around me. And I'd asked the question as I was going into my meditation that day, why am I going through this heavy storyline? What is it that is happening here? And I was told by these golden angels, this flock of angels, that I was going to go through a very extreme storyline, so that I can use and write about this story. There'll be a book and a movie, which will inspire many, many people around the world about the other side of life. And I was going through this because I'm a writer and a storyteller. So I began to understand. And the next thing I was told was, you're going to have this heavy storyline, but you're going to get through. You are going to get out the other side. And then you're going to write and do the movie. So I said, okay. And I believed this 100%. Went in, had the scan, and then the doctors came out, and a wonderful doctor was looking after me, a very senior guy who'd been working for 40 years in this area of oncology. And he came in, and I said, oh, what's the results? And he'd already told me on the previous scan that there was this big tumor. And then he came in on the third scan that I had after the angels had visited, and he said, I don't know what to say to you. And I said, what do you mean? He said, well, the tumor has gone, and there is no scar tissue, which we would have expected, and it's completely healed. And when it looks like a miracle, but we're not in the business of miracles here in the hospital. And I just laughed in his face and said, well, I am. That's my business, is miracles. And this was obviously an extraordinary happening at that moment. And to realize that I was free and I'd done it, or we'd done it. It wasn't an I, there was a we. This collective energy had created this extraordinary story. And yes, wow, what a story to write about. And I'd often thought, well, I wonder what I'm going to write about next. And I was laughing to myself, going, well, they've made that very clear to me. What I'm writing about next is this. So that was the kind of outer shell of what had happened, was me being given a clarity from the angels about my direction. So I had nothing to be concerned about, because I 100% believed that this is what was happening. And sure enough, everything that I had been told would happen actually happened. I had a very big tumor. The angels had told me this would be terrible and to expect really bad news. Then it shrunk, and then it completely went. So these 3 steps was exactly what they had described to me beforehand.
Wow. So you were already in a state where you could understand and believe this.
Yeah.
One of the things that people talk about when they have these different encounters or they go to the other side is that it feels more real than this life. So as you were having that experience in that beautiful golden orb light and you see these golden angels, how did that feel to you compared to what your normal life was?
I didn't really make a distinction, because I had such an extraordinary journey till then anyway. It's extraordinary things kept on happening to me. It's like I asked for it when I was a little girl. I said, I want my life to be extraordinary. And that transpired in my career, for example, to that point. Always I would be having these serendipity situations where I would be in a room with someone that I dreamt of being with and meeting, and sure enough there, and we would be conversing and becoming friends. And so this wasn't unusual to me for being able to manifest and create or experience storylines that felt extraordinary. It was
Wow.
something I became quite used to.
Okay, so will you tell us about the part that was the near-death experience where you went to the other side?
Yeah. So this was one early morning. I sat on my bed and I went over to the nurses' station, and I was in a secluded room. So I had to, because I was so at risk with my situation of getting germs and things. So I was on my own, and I went out to the nurses, and they said, "Susie, what's up?" And I said, "Can I speak to you? I know you're having a meeting, but I need to butt in." And they went, "Yeah, sure." What's happening? And I said, I think I'm going to die today. So I want you to keep special tabs on me. And they kind of said, "Oh, well, don't worry, we've got you covered. You know, you're being observed. You're having observations all the time." I said, "Yeah, okay." So I wandered back to the room, sat on my bed, sat down, began my meditation, and that's when, bam, I'm out my body. And a normal meditation is quite cosmic for me anyway, but this one, I felt when I went whoosh and out of my body, and my whole being expanded, my spirit expanded into the universe. And it wasn't me and the universe, it was just this oneness. Everything was one. And what I can describe to you is that the feeling base of this was bliss. I understood what bliss is, because it is blissful there. There were no concerns, there's no bills, there's no timelines to be rushing to. It's just everything blissful. And so I was loving this, and I was being transported. It was a bit like a movie. It looked a little like the scope behind you, your backdrop. It was cosmic. There were stars, and it was a light twinkling, and it just felt like a Hollywood movie to me. It was twinkling, gorgeous, and not at all scary. I was very comfortable. And I experienced, for me, it felt like I was going through what it feels like when anyone else dies. You go through the veil, through the uh, mechanism, or whatever, that feels a heavy word for it, but beautiful veil that you go through when you change dimensions and move through dimensions. And I felt light, I felt omnipotent, I felt omnipowerful. I could do anything. And I already had pretty good belief system around being able to do anything, but I really could do anything. I was made aware of the power of intentions. So one point on this journey, as I was floating around absorbing it all, and people often ask me, well, how long were you up there? It's an irrelevant question. Time is not linear and doesn't exist outside the body like this. It's a moment of now, it's nowness that continues on. So I was floating around, and at some point I was given this directive. I was given this choice, if you like. And I was told, or it was made clear to me, you can go back if you want. It's a one-time passcode, as it were. But you can go back. Do you want to go back? And immediately, I'm a mom. I haven't said goodbye to my son. He's young. He needs me, of course. Yes, I want to go back. As blissful, as beautiful as it was there, I wanted to go back. And I set the intention. Yes, very clear. Yes, I want back. I want to go back in. And bam, the moment I set that intention, white flash, massive white flash. I can remember it so vividly. It was indescribable. It was beyond words. I know a lot of people say beyond words, but it really, truly was beyond words. White flash. And then the next minute the next moment, that's not a minute, the next feeling, well, I was back in my body. That's when they got up, when this humongous thing had disappeared in that moment of return. So it was a glorious moment. It was a moment where I knew that I would not forget. I would remember everything that I had experienced. And I was being asked to remember that, because the reason I'd been chosen for this in my storyline was because I was being asked to communicate about it. And that's my job now. That's my job, to authentically and in real juicy terms share what happens on the other side for other people. I think we code death quite sadly. Oh, I'm so sorry so and so has passed. I can never say that now. I can't. I'm not sorry. It's fantastic. Sorry for us left behind who may miss this person. Not sorry for them. It's wonderful. So it's actually a very comforting feeling. It's a very optimistic feeling. It's a very gorgeous feeling. And you realize from having these experiences of being out of the body, I realize that get clear about what you want, get clear about your intentions, get clear about your thoughts. Clarity is really important. We can really create whatever we want to create, providing we know what we want. So all of these kind of elements became very clear. And I lost all fear when I came back in. I had no fear about anything. Didn't mind about living or dying. It's the same. It's different, but it's all equally fantastic. And being on the other side is absolutely wonderful. And I wondered to myself, why have we coded it so darkly and with so much fear and trepidation? It's not required. It actually takes us back to source, takes us back to who we are, and it's home in many ways. That's where we've come from. That's where nature comes from. It's where all of the good things come from. And I realized that everything is energy, including our thoughts and our words and our being space and us and our body, with sharing energy and boosting energy out to the world. And similarly, in that state of being out of the body, also energy powering through the universe. And it's really quite something. And I came back with many sort of insights, including things like, we're meant to be happy. We've kind of got this thing of life a bit skewed. We shouldn't be rushing around, being stressed, being worried, being in lack, and being terrorized or being in war. None of these things should be happening. Our job as human beings, if we play it right, is to be loving creatures, is to be compassionate, is to use this brilliant consciousness that we've got to create amazing things, because we can. And if we don't do it, we end up in this sort of muddle and this mess and this crazy, hard kind of living, which is most people's reality now. I mean, don't get me wrong, my life isn't now perfect and easy. I just have a different perspective. I still have the challenges. I still have the difficulties. Things don't always add up or go the way I want, but I look at it differently now. I see it as, oh, what's this here to teach me? What can I learn from this? And what good seed is within this challenge, for example? So I learned that time doesn't exist. And I learned that every moment counts. And it was great to be told you have a short window of time here alive, because suddenly everything became laser sharp focus, because I may not have, I don't know, none of us know how many more moments we've got. So we've got to make the most of them.
Wow. Oh my goodness. So many insights, so much wisdom. I love that. I want to go back to the actual experience of you leaving your body. And you said that you had been out of your body through meditations many times, but this one was different. This one, you immediately felt the expansion of your body. And I know what you're talking about. A lot of people on this show have talked about this. But will you explain what that means, this expansion that we go through? If you can use human words, and I know they fall short, but I want people to understand the power of their soul that you experienced.
Well, I knew there was something that was different to what I'd been taught when I did, for example, plant medicine, ayahuasca, for example. I live in Ibiza, and all of these things are being done a lot. Shamans doing all sorts of things, putting people into trances. I'd experienced the colorful world of psychedelics and the colorful world of ayahuasca and many other things. So I had a reference point for being out of my mind, if you will, beyond the constructs and the tightness of having, living in a box in this small world that many humans live in for their whole lifetime. So I'd experienced what it feels like to expand, but it was almost like that was a Janet and John version of this full scale consciousness expansion that I got when I wasn't in my body. And I'm very grateful for having a benchmark for that, because very few of us, we might fly a little bit when we go into a meditation or altered states or drumming and trance work and so on. We may fly off and then come back, but it's really something else when you leave the body, because really there is no restrictions. You can just literally expand yourself, whatever your self is. You expand and float and become at one with everything. Again, sounds a cliche, but it's kind of all I can give you with the words about what it feels like. It's a feeling of infinite possibility. Well, that's exciting. What if we could do anything? What if? What does that feel like? Well, that's the feeling. You literally can do what you like. You go flying around and helping and visiting and connecting, and it's a cosmic playground out there. So that's very exciting. And I actually, the flip side, I came back into my body, and I'd been in hospital for quite a while. I came back, I got the green card to get out and go back to my beloved island, which I did. I came back, and I'd been doing a lot of visualization about what I would do when I got out there. And I drove my family mad because I ordered tons of beach wear and hats and colorful clothes. And they said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm making my future. I'm imagining my future. I'm imagining being back on the beach." And they all thought I was nuts, but I was actually creating my future, my reality through future visualization, or visualizing the future. So to me, it all made sense because I understood how powerful and good that is to do. And I stand by that. I was really visualizing being back on the beach, being with my friends in Ibiza. So the night I arrived in Ibiza, I went to the village, saw my friends. I hadn't seen them for a long time, and they all never thought they'd see me again. I arrive, party, lovely, great. I arrive home, and we turn the corner, and I had a beautiful house in the forest in the middle of Ibiza, and we drove into the forest, and I could hear this crackling, and I could hear owls going by. It all felt very strange. And I hadn't spent a night in the house for many months. So I'd been in the UK with my family being looked after. So we got to the front door, and as I of burning and smoke, and we opened the big fat wooden doors, and there were red flames flying up, and the whole house was on fire. And that night, the whole house got gutted. I lost everything in one night, the first night I was back. And it was shocking. I had to go and stay in a hotel, work out what to do. It was actually literally homeless with no things. And this was my return to life. Shocking, traumatic, huge. And I reflect a lot when I watch what's happened with the LA flyers. And my good friend Ricky Lake, I saw her last week, and she was telling me about the trauma of losing her home in the fire in LA, and many others, obviously too. Huge, big thing to lose your house. Next morning, we went to the house, opened the doors. It was all black soot. Everywhere was thick black. It's like someone had painted all the walls black. And there was a tarot card left on top of the soot with scarred edges, little black edges. It was the rebirth card. So if I didn't know what this fire represented before, I knew then. This fire took me back and gave me this reset, this rebirth. I lost a lot of my memory and I lost all my things. So I was starting again. So one of the hardest things in this whole journey was going back to life. Was coming back into life, integrating back into life. People didn't know who I was. I changed completely. My conscious awareness changed completely. I didn't want to do the things I did before. I don't want to have conversations about negative stuff. I was on a different frequency, and it was very difficult to integrate back. And then COVID hit immediately as well. So it was all very confusing. It took me a long, long time to come back into life again. Even now, I'm not fully back in with an integrated sense. You know, I'm still trying to get that integration nailed. Yeah.
Susie, do you think your visualization of the beach and how you bought all those beach clothes factored into that house being in a rebirth position to set you up for what you had been trying to visualize with that beach?
I'd never thought of that. I don't know. I think it was a brilliant reset device. It made me move home. It made me get rid of all material. It got rid of all my material possessions in one hit. It did many things, and it set the community here on fire to help me
Pun
with.
intended.
I got offered, but yeah, with beautiful villas and homes and things, and people are very generous. Have been very generous, and that was a big learning for me. I'd grown up thinking that I had to do everything myself. I couldn't really rely on others to help. And this storyline forced me to take help and really lean on my community. I learned heavily. I needed help with everything. And I had people looking after my son, my house, my business, all of my garden, everything. You know, I needed help on every area, food and everything. So it made me very much more vulnerable and humble, and learning the power of that. The power of vulnerability is huge. I was a classic successful person who had driven, you know, driving very hard and wanting success and all of this. And there was little heart connection, I suppose. There was a certain amount of heart connection always, but I learned how important people, community, families, friends, supporters, asking for help is. I learned the importance of all of that. That was one of the biggies for me. Was really appreciating how to get help and not being too proud to ask for it.
Wow, that's a powerful message for the people that are listening. The other thing I'd love for you to share is because you have understood the visualization from your experience on the other side, where you saw that we could create in thought anything that we could imagine. And you're doing that in a different way here on this planet. And I think a lot of people are stopped from creating what they really and truly want because there's a part of them that doesn't believe that it's going to happen or doesn't want to get attached to it happen and not happening. And I think it does begin with your words. Like when I talk about things in business and it's something that I believe is going to happen, I have to change the words I use. And I never use an if. I only use a when, because I see and visualize something as having it as if it has already happened. I know that's part of it, but what would you tell the people who are watching who want to use visualization, who want to create some things in their lives and are stuck maybe in that little voice that says, oh, this is silly, you're not gonna do it, what if you fail? What would you say to the people who are watching?
Well, there's lots to say about this. It works. Visualization works. It's now been shown in science about how the quantum field is affected by thoughts. And I've got this down. You know, I studied a lot of people who do a lot of great science in this area, and I kind of had the science down, but then I got the practicalities down, and I realized, and I saw in real time that when I changed my thoughts when I was out there, and I would materialize differently. So I think have faith is the first thing. You don't need to read all the science and stuff. Just try this. Try believing that what you visualize, what you create in your mind's eye here, will transpire into experience and reality creation. It just does. So become a ninja about everything you're allowing to go through here. And the brain can't work with negative. So if you're putting the negative positions into your third eye, your brain will take away the negative and just take it that what you want, that negative position you're describing, that's what you want. So change it and change it into something. Imagine it's like you have a little magnets attached to your thoughts, and every time you think a thought, it's going to attract it like a magnet would, and make it happen. Just imagine that's true, because it is. And then you have to really police yourself, because we are conditioned to talk. I often sit in a cafe with I love coffee, by the way. I sit in a cafe drinking coffee, listening to people, and most people are talking a downbeat story. Oh, how are you doing? Oh, well. And if people feel like they have to tell a bad story to relate or something, I don't know why we do it, but don't. Just really change that and imagine that whatever you're speaking about, you could well be magnetizing that very thing into your life. So do you still want to tell that story, or do you want to choose a better one? Sounds cliched, but boy, this is probably one of the most important things I would love to leave as my legacy. I've learned many things, and I think one of the things that I would love to inspire people with and share to people and get changes in is this power of thought, power
Me
of thought.
too. Me too.
Manifest, yeah, is triggered
I
by
gotta grab something. This is so crazy. I painted 400 paintings called Soul Heart Art, yeah, over a course of 4 years. And I just moved to this new house. And the last painting that was left in my old house, I haven't had a chance to put it away. And I just stuck it on the windowsill. I have to get it. You're not going to believe this.
oh
It's
oh
called Superpower Challenge. So do you
oh
see the heart and how it has all these thoughts?
oh yeah.
So I got a download about 15 years ago in the shower, and it was this idea called the Superpower Challenge, where people would go and get a little box of the Tic Tac candies. You know, they come in, I don't know, 126 in a box, and they would put it in their pocket, and they would monitor their thoughts. And when they would have a thought that didn't serve them, they would eat a Tic Tac so that they could remind themselves of this thing that they were doing. And I think that there would be a lot of people that would get to noon and would have eaten the entire box. Or
Right.
maybe they'll be better and have some left over by the time they get to the end of the day. But what it does is it puts a spotlight on these things that we tell ourselves, because chemically, our body is releasing endorphins when we tell ourselves these thoughts over and over again, because our body is used to being fed with them. And once you become aware of it, you can't unsee that you're doing it. So it's just a little moniker to be able to remind yourself of what you were doing. And I thought it would just be as simple as we take that thought and replace it with something else. But what I realized, and I think that this is what you're doing, is that you can't just change the thought, you have to change the perception around why that thought is that way, because otherwise it's impossible to release it, because your body has a chemical mediator that's holding you to those thoughts. So if you change your perception to something like, this is happening on my behalf, this is happening for me and not to me, then you can change the power of that thought into something more powerful. It's so funny. We talked before this interview about how many things we had in alignment and in common. And this is yet another thing that we didn't even talk about before the interview that I can't believe we both have a passion for this. The very first video I ever put on this channel was called Change Your Thoughts.
Oh, really?
And it was all about that idea.
Well, that is a fundamental. If someone was in a lift with me and said, right, okay, you got 5 seconds to change my life and or make things better for me, what would you do? This is the topic. This is it. My son is a ninja at this. He's a world expert. And if I even begin to go into a story that isn't lovely about someone, he'll pull me up straight away and go, no.
We
And
all need one of those ninjas in our life.
yeah,
Sitting
kids are
right
great with
here.
it because they're naturally a sponge for excitement and fun and let's do this, and kids are great, and they're great. He's grown up with me banging on all the time about the importance of running things well here, and now he teaches me the whole time. Today he did about 5 times. Just said, hey, I don't think that's the right language to be using that, and I, yeah, okay, right, yeah. So
I love that so
catch
much.
ourselves. Yeah, yeah.
I'm gonna borrow him and just see, just to check myself for a day.
Yeah,
Okay,
well,
the
it's like,
other thing that we have in common, and I both want us to get our books out, is that we have a love of this one book, which to me was pre The Secret, and it's Three Magic Words. And
I've got it in multiple
you
versions and
do. And it was
very
printed in a
fatty.
bunch of versions. And it's so funny. We both shared how ours are both earmarked, ours are falling apart, the spine is coming out on mine. So I have to tell the story of how I found this book, because
Yeah.
my mom found the book probably 35 years ago. It was in the nightstand of her dresser next to her bed, and they moved, I think, 7 or 8 times. And that she never took it out. She kept it in there and she had never read it. And then one day she opened her drawer and she saw it and she decided it was time to read it. And then she shared it with my sister and I, who were also on spiritual journeys at the time, and we read it. And it has one of my favorite experiments, and that is where you can take an item that belongs to somebody or just have a thought of somebody for 10 minutes and will them to contact you. And I did this, and somebody I hadn't talked to for 6 months called me 2 hours later. The power of our thoughts, this is beyond The Secret, because I'll let you share your part of it and be the spoiler alert on the Three Magic Words. But tell me how you found this book.
Well, you know what? When we first spoke about this, I began to think, oh, how did I find it? And it was an extraordinary story about how I found this. Um, and I remember thinking at the time, that is so unlikely that I would join the dots on this book. But it was recommended, someone recommended to it, and then someone else mentioned it, and it just kept coming up. So I thought I must get hold of this book. I'm a real fan of books that are written along, in the 40s, and Napoleon Hill, big fan. I don't know when this was.
1956, I'm almost positive.
Thank you. Right. So the 50s, they were just a great base for great writing that was going on about the power of divine consciousness in whatever form that is. And I've been also reading another book, Napoleon Hill, about miracles in your life and watching for miracles in your life. As soon as you start filtering for something, you'll see it. Red cars. I want to buy a red car. Suddenly, everywhere you see red cars. And that hasn't, the car's colors haven't changed. It's just you're noticing it more. And all of this sort of thing of just being tuned for synchronicities and unusual things. It's so good.
Oh my
And
gosh,
when
I want to share a story right here because you mentioned specifically red cars. There's a book that I read a long time called E Squared by Pam Grout, Energy Squared, and she does all these experiments that she has you do. You participate in it. And one of the first experiments is she said, pick a color of a car, and I want you to notice how often you see it. You'll see it all the time. So it was a Saturday, and I went on this errand. I lived in Chicago, and I decided green cars were not very common. I'm going to look for green cars. I drove about a total of 40 minutes from my house to my destination. They were closed. It happened to be, I was trying to go to a craft fair. It wasn't until the next day. I had to go exactly back home the same way. And do you know how many green cars I saw? Zero, not a single one, none in 40 minutes of driving in Chicago, in the suburbs of Chicago. And I thought, this doesn't even work. Well, the next day, I wasn't even thinking about this green car experiment that I had just had. And I was going back to the exact same place at the craft fair because it was now really and truly open that day. And I don't even get off of my street. And I see the first green car and I went, green car. I started tracking them. I saw 52 of them in the same 45-minute trip. Number one, I think it was the universe showing us that the power of like manifesting something is absolutely there. And to prove it to me, because I'm so left-brained, they did it where I went the exact same route and saw zero. And then the very next day, same time of day, it was a Saturday versus a Sunday, saw 52 uncommon green cars. I even saw like a neon lime green car that day. That blew my mind. And that was this beginning of a journey, probably 12 or 13 years ago, of how powerfully we could attract things and influence what happens in our lives. So I'd love you to weigh in on that.
Well, there's another element to this. You said that the first day you went out on your journey, you didn't see any.
None.
And the next day, when you'd kind of forgotten about the experiment, it happened then. So this to me gives another trigger and another clue as to the power of how manifestation works. When you push, there is a resistance. When you
Oh, I
let
love
go,
this.
no, never, then bam, in it comes, in it comes. So you weren't even looking. And
Attachment,
that's it.
lack of attachment, right?
So that was what your story delivered to you, was that just relax, let it go, don't hang on, and then things will move.
And now we're
Because
delivering it to
again,
everybody else.
yeah, quantum physics has a point of view which is if you are pushing, you freeze the movement of waves and particles. When you just relax and that you don't have that pushy, this has to happen, then everything can swirl around and move the way you want it to. So that's a good one.
Absolutely brilliant. I have never thought of it from that vantage point. I just thought it was more of they were proving to me that in that same journey that something could happen. But you were right. As soon as you said it, I knew that that was a truth. It was the push versus the resistance versus the allowing.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Make it
Oh my gosh,
easy.
Susie, this
And
has been such an enlightening conversation. I feel like you were just going to add something else. So, what else did you want to
yeah, I
add?
was just going to say that, life is, I think this taps into how we should run our lives. And I think we are too contrived. We try and organize things too tightly. When we just go, oh, well, just relax, like you're meditating or you're breathing or all of these techniques, is relaxation. Is there where the magic is. We're not meant to be pushing and shoving and organizing. The universe has a much better plan. We don't have to do all that. That's lack of trust. If we just trust it's all going to work out and breathe through it and just not try and orchestrate it, that's when the magic kicks in. That's when the miracles happen and the good things happen. We don't know. We only see the tip of the iceberg. And so when pushing and shoving, we're not really helping ourselves.
I love that. That's so powerful. Well, speaking of books, I know that you have written your own, I think maybe even more than one, right?
Yeah. The
So
first book I
where can
wrote,
people, yeah, tell us about your books and tell us
yeah.
where people can find you.
Yeah, thank you. So the first book I wrote is my best book. It's called Instructions for Happiness and Success. And you can I'm working with Penguin at the moment to it's going to be re-released, but not yet. So for now, get it on my website as a download. It's brilliant because it's about mind technology, it's about manifestation, it's about energy, thoughts, frequency, lassoing your thoughts and how to really manage that whole thing that we've just been speaking about. And that was pre-Secret. That was my very first book. And that was sort of channeled. And I, I read it now, I think, wow, I still feel like it's really fantastic information. So that's sort of a mind tech book. And then I wrote uh, more recently, uh, this book, which is Art of Creativity. And I collaborated with the gorgeous David Lynch, who is now with us, no longer with us. He passed, and I love his style of um, descriptions around creativity. And I think creativity is something that we can all embrace more and drop our belief systems about I'm not artistic or whatever it is and get stuck into creativity. And this will help you heal, grow, transform, learn, and be happy. It's a powerful thing. So that's wonderful. And at the moment, I'm finishing my current book about my near-death experience, which will come out later on in the year. And
Wonderful.
I'm talking there a lot about the lessons I learned, the things I learned about life when I died. Yeah.
So you mentioned that that first book is right now going to be re-released and it's only on your website, but you didn't tell us what your website is. What's your website?
Okay, so the website is susiepearl.com.
Pretty easy.
So head there, there's a book section with all of the stuff that I've written. And it'd be lovely. I love it when people get in touch. It's so nice. And then I'm going to New York next month to take part.
Next month, I'll just say that next month will be April of 2025 because these videos do live in perpetuity. So don't get all excited if it's past
Yeah.
next
Okay.
month.
So I'm going to be filmed by a wonderful filmmaker to talk about. It's a documentary about life after death, and so I'm going to be talking about the story there in the film, and it'll be on streaming platforms and Netflix and everything. So that's exciting. So yeah, lots
Wonderful.
going on really, and my job is to inspire and help people feel good about living
And you're
and
doing
dying.
it. You are absolutely doing it. Susie, I love your energy. I have so loved this conversation. I feel so lucky to be the person who gets to have these. Thank you so much. I'm going to use this very intentionally for sending the pearls of wisdom to us because I do feel like you have lots of pearls that you have shared with us today. And I want to thank you so much for what you are doing to help wake up the collective consciousness. It is so needed right now.
Thank you, and thank you for your work too. All we can do is communicate great things to each other and hope that it inspires others to listen and to think and to feel, and maybe get some good insights, because we're here for a short time. That you might as well have fun and really enjoy our lives.
Mine as well. And thank you so much to everybody for watching. Next up, check out this playlist of other NDE interviews. Please like and subscribe. It really helps this channel to grow so I can bring you more content. Thank you for watching. I'm so glad you're here.